Is it worth recycling? Let's find out. I've got a nice variety of items here to rank today. Starting off with a really easy one is your soda can, Coca-Cola. Everyone knows these, and these are going to be an easy S tier. So your typical soda can is made of aluminum, and these are infinitely recyclable. And these are super worth it to recycle because recycling aluminum requires less energy and raw resources than making fresh aluminum. There's a high market value for this, and these are so easy to recycle. It's an easy S tier. We've also got our food cans. These are made of steel, but this is what you'll see that has canned soup or canned vegetables. And this is also another easy S tier for the same reasons as the Coca-Cola. It's easy to recycle, it's infinitely recyclable, there's a demand for it, so if you can, recycle these. All right, next up, we've got our bubble mailers. I got a picture of an Amazon Prime one, or I've actually got one right here as well. I know you've seen these. If you order stuff online, it's being shipped in this kind of stuff. And these are going in the F tier, not worth recycling. I see a lot of people put these in the recycling bin, but if you take a closer look here, it says right on it. There's the recycling symbol and it's crossed out. That's because it's not worth recycling. This is called wish cycling. It's when you put something in the recycling bin because you wish it could be recycled. And truthfully, wish cycling is not helping anything because you're just putting a bigger burden on the sorting facility to sort these out and have to take care of them. So let's not put these in the recycling bin. These are an F tier. Okay, next up, we've got our plastic water bottles. And this one might surprise you actually. So plastic water bottles are made of PET, or people also call it PET. And PET plastic is one of the most common types of plastic in the world. So I had to do some research to figure out where to rank this, and I found a report from an organization called NAPCOR. Every year they release a report that gives us some information about what actually happens to PET bottles in the United States. One of the main numbers they report on here is the gross recycling rate. And in 2020, this was 26.6%. What this means is that out of all the PET bottles produced in the United States, about 27% of them were sold to a reclaimer to be recycled. They also have another number, which is the rPET generation rate. rPET is just recycled PET. This rPET generation rate was about 18%. So this means that out of all the PET bottles in the United States, about 18% of them actually became rPET. This seems really low, and it is. But I wouldn't want people to get discouraged from plastic recycling because of this. Because the first thing to take into account is the reason the gross recycling rate is low. And I think the primary reason for this is that people don't bother to recycle their plastic bottles in the first place. I think this is where this belief stems that plastic recycling is a myth, is that sure, if you throw a plastic bottle into the recycling bin, there is a chance it's going to the landfill, but there's also a really good chance it's going to be recycled. So I'm going to put this into A tier, which might surprise some people. I was surprised to find out that PET is actually the same material as polyester, and that is the biggest destination for these recycled bottles, is being turned into clothing and also things like carpet or clamshell containers. Next up are your kitchen scraps. These are your onion peels, the food scraps you threw away, that kind of thing. And I think these deserve an S tier. They're not conventionally recyclable and they don't belong in your mixed recycling bin, but kitchen scraps are compostable. And I think composting is something we need more of in today's society because composting is basically nature's way of recycling. We can turn organic materials into a soil amendment that is essentially food and vitamins for plants. By composting kitchen scraps, we're keeping material out of landfills and helping it to have a second life. And like these other two things, kitchen scraps and organic matter is infinitely recyclable. Next up on our list are plastic grocery bags. These are categorized as plastic film. This is, here I have some right here. This is your stretchy, flexible, thin kind of plastic that's in grocery bags and Ziploc bags and packaging. So it's kind of what it looks like. I had to do a little research as to where to rank these because these don't belong in your typical mixed waste recycling. You may have seen at the entrance of grocery stores, they have a bin to collect grocery bags and similar plastic film. And this is where you would want to recycle these. But not all of this is being recycled. ABC News did a little experiment where they got 46 AirTag trackers and wrapped them in plastic film to be dropped off at different grocery stores. And what they found is that only 4 of these trackers ended up at facilities involved with recycling plastic film. And half of the trackers ended up at landfills. But not all hope is lost because 6 of these trackers were still at the grocery store. So clearly, when you put it in the recycling, there's no guarantee that it will be recycled. I did a little research into what these are turned into, and I found out that they're commonly downcycled into decking boards. These are composite decking boards. They're made of plastic, sawdust, and glue, which sounds like a terrible mix of materials, but it actually looks pretty nice. I've helped to build a deck using these, and these materials apparently last longer than pressure-treated wood. Trex is one of the biggest companies that sells these decking boards. Trex claims to be the largest recycler of polyethylene film in the United States. So if you drop off your grocery bags back at the grocery store, Trex is one of the companies making it possible to recycle this because they're buying it from the grocery store. So I think that's pretty cool. One big part of the recycling industry is creating a demand for the recycled product. So even though I'm not the biggest fan of using plastic to build things, this is a genuine use case that makes it worth recycling these grocery bags. So C tier is pretty good for that. Next up is cardboard. And I gotta start off by saying it is crazy how much cardboard we're using these days. When we order things online and it comes in a cardboard box, it's only used once and then it goes straight to the recycling bin. This really isn't great because the cardboard really has more use potential. So before recycling it, if it's possible, try to reuse it. Try to ship something out with it or use that box to store something. But I know that's not always possible. And overall, recycling cardboard is really worth it. So this is going to go in the A tier because there is a demand for recycled cardboard. This recycled cardboard is used to make corrugated shipping boxes, which there's a huge demand for. Now, the reason it's not S tier is because to make cardboard, you can't only use recycled cardboard. The fibers get shorter over time and you need to mix in fresh cardboard to make this product. So it's not a perfectly closed loop system, but it's definitely useful to recycle it and reduce the amount of trees needed to make cardboard. Next to cardboard, we've got paper. I've got kind of a weird picture here for paper. It's like some old, broken down kind of paper, but paper is kind of the same story as cardboard. It's definitely worth recycling and goes in the A tier. Similar to cardboard, you usually need some virgin material to make recycled paper products. But recycling it really does reduce the demand for trees to be cut down. One great way to participate in recycling is to buy products with post-consumer recycled materials. One example would be this toilet paper from Trader Joe's. I'll try to show you here. This toilet paper is made from 100% recycled material, and 80% of that is post-consumer recycled. Buying products like this can help the recycling industry to be more economically viable and reduce the need for raw materials. So that's a great way to also participate in this process. All right, next up is glass bottles. And I gotta say, I love a good glass bottle. It's such a classy way to package something. It just feels so natural and nice. And I'm going to give glass an A tier because glass is infinitely recyclable, but not quite as much as our cans here. Because to produce glass, you can't just use recycled glass. When glass is recycled, it's ground down into a crushed material that's called cullet. And cullet is often added when producing new glass. And by adding cullet, it has a lot of benefits. One being that you get a higher quality product in general. But also adding cullet reduces the amount of heat needed and reduces the amount of raw materials needed. So it's definitely worth it, definitely gets that A tier. One thing about glass is that it requires sand to be made, and often this sand comes from riverbeds. Taking sand from riverbeds is usually a pretty destructive process, and so by recycling glass, we can hopefully reduce the amount needed. Now, one thing about glass is it doesn't always go in your mixed recycling bin, and that's the case for me. I collect my glass separately and drop it off at a specific location. But I really think it's worth it because it's not that much effort and it makes a big benefit. For me, I collect a large quantity of glass before I drop it off, and I really only do a few drop-offs every year. So I think it's well worth it to recycle glass. Okay, next up we got our Duracell. These are our single-use alkaline batteries. And these ones are kind of funny. I'm going to put them in the D tier because they're barely worth recycling. So the deal with alkaline batteries is that they're so small, it's not very profitable to recycle them. And in general, don't quote me on this, but in general, it is safe to throw them away in your household trash. But don't put them in your mixed recycling. If you do want to bother recycling these, you can go to batterynetwork.org. This website will help you find places locally where you can drop off these batteries. Home Depot is a place that often collects these. But really, I feel like it's hardly worth recycling these at all. It seems really inconvenient to collect these batteries just to drop them off somewhere. And honestly, I haven't been recycling them myself. So those are going in D tier. Recycle them if you really feel like it. Okay, next up we got the iPhone 3GS. And we're not actually talking about the iPhone here, but we're talking about the battery inside of it. We're talking about lithium ion batteries, which are something that is becoming increasingly common in today's society where we electrify everything. According to the Environmental Protection Agency, lithium ion batteries and devices containing these batteries should not go in household garbage or recycling bins. They should be taken to separate recycling collection points. So these are something that really don't belong in the trash. And for that reason, I'm going to put them in S tier. It's more of an honorary S tier though, because for smaller batteries, it's almost not worth it to recycle them. There's unique challenges here because often lithium ion batteries are inside of different devices. And it's a ton of work to extract these batteries safely and make them worth recycling. It seems like lithium ion battery recycling it's an industry that still needs some time to grow and figure out what it's doing. But similar to the alkaline batteries, you can go to batterynetwork.org to figure out where to recycle these. Next up, we've got almond milk. And we're not talking about the milk, we're talking about tetra paks. These are a unique kind of container that it's kind of like a carton that's often used to store liquids. You've probably seen these, especially to store soup. And there's kind of a problem with these. And the problem is that they're made of multiple materials. On the outside, you've got your paper or cardboard exterior, but there's also a layer of aluminum and a lining of plastic. And because it's made of multiple things, it's extremely difficult for these to be recycled at all. They really don't belong in your home recycling bin, and I'm not sure of any other good ways to really recycle these. So these are going in the F tier. Don't bother, just throw them away. You know, if you need to buy these, that's fine, but don't wish cycle them. You're not going to be helping anything. And I think it's pretty funny because on this one specifically, it says, please recycle, which this is just greenwashing right here. Like, you're asking me to recycle this. There's no way to do it. Like, just throw it away and move on. As you can see by the list, there are much more important things to spend your time recycling. Okay, and the last item on our list is the milk jug. These milk jugs have the resin code 2, which is for high density polyethylene. Resin code number 2 is accepted in most mixed recycling bins, and the story is kind of similar to PET. So I'm going to give this an A tier because it's really easy to recycle and it's most likely worth it. It seems like there is a demand for recycled HDPE. When this is recycled, it can be used to make new milk jugs, other plastic jugs, or also plastic piping or outdoor furniture, While it's not infinitely recyclable, it is worth putting this in your recycling bin. If you have one, it's something that's super easy to do and really isn't going to hurt. A couple notes here. Just because something's high up on the list here doesn't mean it belongs in your mixed recycling. Please just do your own research, find out what belongs in your bin, because that's going to make a big impact here. We don't want to wish cycle and put the wrong things in here, because that's just decreasing the efficiency of the recycling process as a whole. It's important you put the right things in your bin, and you should be able to research what belongs there on your own. And as I've been saying through the video, before recycling, if possible, it's always good to reduce and reuse, because these are going to have a greater impact. But those don't always work, which is why we have recycling. If you're putting things in your mixed recycling, they should be clean and dry. You shouldn't be putting in soup cans that have leftover soup in them. At least take the time to rinse them out. One rule of thumb I have is that if your recycling bin has like a gross layer of liquid at the bottom, you're probably doing it wrong, because these should really be clean and dry before they go in your bin. I'm not an expert on this topic at all. I tried my best to research these in an unbiased way, but if you disagree with any of my rankings, I would really love to hear from you. Let me know in the comments what you disagree with. Let's have a nice discussion and figure out where the truth is here. Also, if you can think of anything I forgot to rank, also let us know in the comments what it is and what tier it belongs on. If you're not someone who really recycles at all, it would be best if you start with these high tier items, because this is where you can make the biggest impact. Recycle your soda cans, your soup cans, that kind of thing. I know that not everyone has access to a recycling bin, and that's not necessarily your fault. You know, I think the United States is uniquely terrible at recycling. Just our rate of recycling things is so low. So if you have the opportunity, then do your part to try to recycle these things, because it's just the responsible thing to do, to take good care of the resources we have and try to create a more efficient and circular society. Thanks for watching. See ya.